we go back a long way, Tom.
Yeah, we do. Fucking CYO basketball. You believe that?
It'd mean a lot to me and Deanne.
Well, let me think about it.
That ship sailed. Final notice time.
Really?
You got a problem with that?
No. I just got to run it by Vito. He's my captain.
Believe me, Vito will be down with it.
So this comes from Tony?
It's coming from me. I'm not a fucking captain.
All right, okay. How soon?
ASAP, like right away. I'll call with the details, get it done. I'll put in a good word to T about the Florida thing.
That's a no-go.
What?
Can't be accommodated. You're part of the team.
But I just did that thing.
You ought to know, sweetie. Oh. What'd you say? Nothing, what?
Gotcha.
Okay, I'm joined here. I'm talking to the incredible Robert Funaro, who you may know as Eugene Pontecorvo. He is on the greatest television of all time, The Sopranos. You would have also seen him on two of the greatest films of all time, American Gangster, alongside Russell Crowe, Denzel Washington, and Josh Brolin. And more recently, he graced the screens with his presence in The Irishman, alongside the great Robert De Niro. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Thomas Berryman. Very nice introduction. More than whatever. Just thank you so much for that. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for talking to me. You're from Brooklyn, New York. Is that correct?
Yes, I was born in Brooklyn, Coney Island Hospital, Brighton Beach, where my family first. I grew up initially as a young boy.
Yeah. And when did you first get interested in acting?
Well, my uncle, who was a priest, a Monsignor in Catholic, he used to put on these productions to raise money for his parish. First it was in Howard Beach, New York, Long Island, and then it was in Brooklyn, Catholic Charities. He became very big. He was a director, and we would go to see his shows as a young man. Anything Goes, Hello, Dolly. He really did, towards the end of his producing and directing, was able to bring some of the people who were involved in the actual production, producers, musical composers and stuff. So they became very professional. So I was hooked from him, Monsignor Joseph Funaro. You know what I mean? And that's how I got the bug, so to say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you remember what your first acting role was?
Maybe it was to get another dish of macaronis from my mother.
Yeah.
Another dish of pasta, you know. I mean, we used to laugh it up and do, you know, when cassette tape recorders first came out, you know, things used to,
Yeah.
we used to do all these
long time
impressions and stuff like that with my cousins. We would do different scenarios. I suppose laughing it up and doing those scenarios first, you know, early stages of being rewarded by laughter.
Yeah.
What better reward than laughter? Those times we would make things up and be different people, you know, Southern people with the, you know, in America, the Southern people, and make fun of them, and make fun of ourselves. So I mean, my first, you know, acting gig, I suppose in high school, I started really, you know, I took the drama class in high school, did a small role in one of the shows, a compilation show. But I decided after high school that I really wasn't going to pursue acting.
How did you get to get your first role in The Sopranos? How did that come about?
Well, when I was cast in a play called The Streetcar Named Desire, which toured Scandinavia, Sweden, Finland, and finally Norway. It was a 3-month tour, my first professional job.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was James Gandolfini's first professional, because he was cast also. He played Mitch, and I played Stan. And we were paid in German currency, Deutsche Marks. It was really, I paid 600 Deutsche Marks. It was like like getting paid $1,000 a week
Wow.
because it was so high, the value of the Deutschmark then in the it was in the it was in the early 80s, 83, 84, something like, so we toured that, and that was how I first met James. And then later on in my life, after many years, maybe 10 years, James, went to California, did True Romance. He came back to New York after a bit of a working in LA and maybe living there for some time, a year or so. I don't think he liked it very much. And when he came back, he landed Sopranos. And on the third season, I was working at Caroline's on Broadway, managing a friend of mine, Gordon Silver. He went up to him at a party prior to the date. And when I got my big break, and asked him, and said, if I was you, I would cast your friend Bobby Funaro. Some people call me Bobby, in The Sopranos. This was after season 2. And he said, what's Bobby? James said, what's Bobby doing? Bobby's working at Caroline's. He's managing. Oh, okay. So James remembered that. And when they came for a casting for a role on the show, he came down to Caroline's. I walked in one day he knew the time I was going to be in. Yeah. He's sitting at the bar. Or no, he's standing up at the bar, and I see him. And there it is.
Wow.
James, how you doing? And he said to me, hey, Bobby, how you doing? What's going on? I looked over a few bars, a few comedy clubs before I found you. He had his driver, Joe Fay, wonderful man, who was James' personal driver, from the show. Searched the clubs. That he may have went to one or two, found out, and then he finally honed down Caroline's. And he offered me an audition. He said, I can't promise you anything. I actually tried to get a friend on the show, and it didn't work, but I want to offer you an audition. So he offered me the audition, and of course it helped that I knew him. And I went through the process, and I landed a role. That's how I got my first big break. James was my guardian angel, so to say.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Agent. It's it's so hard being an actor in New York. It's really difficult, and some people think getting a union card is your key end. It really has always been knowing someone that perhaps, as Jack Lemmon, the great actor Jack Lemmon said, is sending the elevator down for your friend. And I try to do this in my life and help others, help them in their careers, because it's really difficult. And, an agent doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get, and it's so hard to land an agent. How do you do that? Well, you have to work and try to get your work seen. Yeah. And hopefully, I met James, that helped me. I met Brian De Palma, Robert De Niro, Brian De Palma, and Martin Scorsese. And then they click. That doesn't happen all the time. I have a few friends like that. I'm hoping that it does happen, and we collaborate more. We get more to do more, but that's the best collaboration. The agents doesn't really matter. They're vital, and there are good agents out there. So I guess I'm digressing, but just one.
No, that's awesome. That's a cool story, man. That's sweet. So what about did The Sopranos help you get onto other roles like American Gangster and stuff like that, or was it a different process?
It opened all the doors.
Yep.
Opened all the doors. The show was so well liked. A hit, such a hit. It opened up the doors for many on the show. James helped me he helped me with his agent. I didn't sign with Writers and Artists, but they started sending me out for Law and Orders, and I finally landed a role on Law and Order, and then everything opened up. It's like a domino effect. Yeah. So yes.
Everyone just says good things about him. It seems like an amazing guy.
Yeah, he was a true, I guess if you were to describe him, his middle name would be Charity and Love.
Yeah.
And also, he was tough too. He was tough on himself as an actor. He always questioned, I said, Bobby, how was that?
Wow.
That was fantastic. I don't know. And there were many projects that James, I don't think people realize, he had turned, the Hemingway project, which I auditioned for with Clive Owen. He helped produce that Hemingway film about Hemingway. He always had a pension player in his Hemingway. He had the same sort of soul. Of course, he wasn't going to kill himself, you know what I mean? Yeah. But his artistry and his way of life, and how Hemingway defied the odds, first book, of course, everyone knows that, about World War I believe. He was very much like Hemingway, but he questioned whether or not he had his own ability. Of course, it was no question in my mind that he would have been the best Hemingway. No offense, Clive Owen, if you're out there listening, but I only wish he would have done a sequel starring himself.
Yeah.
I auditioned for his best friend. I don't remember his best friend. I didn't get it. Some other actor got it, but he got me the audition. I never would have got that audition without him. Never.
You're brilliant.
And I remember the audition because Thomas, I remember the audition because it's funny because James is always defying the odds, always doing things the things that you would never do, he would dare to do.
Yeah.
If someone said, "Don't touch that, you might get hurt," he wanted to touch that and see the feeling himself. Of course, it's not going to kill him. You know, he's not going to put his hand on an electrified fence, but he wanted to experience. That was his great thing to experience. I remember the audition. I actually mooned. You know, I had to put myself on self-tape, and I mooned the casting director. I pulled my pants down like we were having a fun night. Hemingway and his best friend, and I mooned. That's the only. I wonder what he thought. He never really got out on tape. He never got out on social media. So I'm okay.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah, maybe I should have mentioned it now. Now Warner Brothers will throw it out there, right?
Yeah.
Who cares about my ass? That's what he would say. Who cares about my ass? That's what James.
Yeah.
Just another ass in the scheme of things, you know, because that was James' personality. He had so much humility, and he always laughed at a lot of what people thought of him. He just he'd sign all the autographs coming out of Sopranos, and just want to get home now. I got to go home, you know, see my kid or relax.
Yeah. What was it like working with Josh Brolin and Russell Crowe and Denzel Washington from American Gangster?
I have multiple stories. The Russell Crowe, of course, post Gladiator.
Yeah.
I mean, that was tremendous to be even on the same set with him and Ridley Scott. The first day I shot, I was walking. We shot a scene, and I was walking back to my trailer. And I get a tap on the shoulder. So I turn around, and it's Russell Crowe. And he says, "Hi, I'm Russell Crowe." And I'm like, "Hi, I'm Bobby Funaro. It's a pleasure." You know, of course, I say, "I love your work. It's a pleasure to meet you." And that was it. It was but he came and introduced himself to me. And I thought, well, you know, people really don't get Russell Crowe correctly. They always think of some, you know, outside of his acting, that they say he's I don't know, they had some bad reputation, but not to me. He's a really I knew I would get along with him personality. I didn't have many scenes with him, but I did have some, and they were really great to be around him. Of course, Ridley Scott also. Josh Brolin, he really is a really very talented actor, and he likes to have fun, have a good time. But besides that, he's a real pro. And when I first got the role of McCann, there wasn't much dialogue, and Josh made sure that, you know, he went to Ridley and he told him, you know, I think Bobby, you know, if you see the scene when I'm looking at
it fucking registers.
It registers.
Yeah.
You know, the bowling bag.
Yeah.
That was Josh who told Ridley that, you know, give Bobby that line, or, you know, and he made sure that I had some more, you know, got some dialogue in there, you know what I mean? So, I mean, Josh Brolin, besides, you know, just being a great actor, is a great person too. So it was great to work with Josh. Of course, Ridley Scott, I'll tell you a little story about him. Like the first or second day on set, they call me in, and we have to do the scene where we pick up the drugs. We're in a hospital setting, but it's actually a hospital for a police department. There's a scene we pick up drugs from the evidence room, me, Josh, and some of the other SIU detectives, Special Investigation Unit detectives. And we take one take and a couple of takes walking up in a hallway. It's like maybe the first take, walking in the hallway. You see us walking through the hallway. Really wants that shot of these guys, you know, walking through the hallway, going to get the drug, you know, going to pick up the drugs because they're selling it. They were dirty cop. And cut. Okay, go back. Really, apparently wants to wet the floor. He wants to shine the floor, the linoleum floors. He doesn't like. So okay. And I noticed, like, prior to this outdoors, he's wetting the streets in New York. In the Bronx, I wet the floor. So action, we're walking and we're slipping our asses off we can't walk. Cut. What's the matter? Yeah, it's slippery. Well, we got to get rubber soles, but we can't. We'll have to get them tomorrow. The shoe guy who could put the rubber soles on there. They did. So I said to myself, look at this. The first day on set, after we shot the scene, and we managed to balance ourselves because with the first couple of takes, we couldn't understand. We were full, like we're tripping, like, you know. I said, first to myself, I said, Jesus, I'm working for Ridley Scott. This guy he's a really demanding director. The Gladiator, everything. Guy, people said, what was he like? I said, the director wants you to walk on water, but besides that, he's a great guy.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's my Ridley Scott story, you know.
That's awesome. And
he leaves you alone. And I think the great directors do leave you alone. If you get there, you know why you're there. An actor always wants the pat on the back. Did I do good? You're not going to get that. With the great directors, they hire you. They know you have it. That could actually ruin a performance.
Yeah, expecting you to bring the A game.
Subconscious. If they say you're doing great, keep it like that. Then you try to match that, and you're not kind of living in the scene or breathing, or really creating life, as opposed to replicating it when they tell you. So great directors know that he's one of them.
Yeah. And what was it like? Did you have much to do with Denzel?
That one scene that we stop his car, I was a bit wary of saying hi to him and talking to him, because we didn't interact in the scene. I didn't have any dialogue, but we do. I am present with Josh when we open up his trunk and we see what's in the back, the money. A friend of mine said, be careful talking to Denzel, because he can shut you down real quick. And I do regret it, because me and Denzel, well, I had the same acting teacher as Denzel did, Win Hanman. God rest his soul, he passed away by COVID 2 years ago, but he was in his late 80s, early 90s. So we had something to talk about. Win would always say, Denzel always wanted to do Shakespeare, he just did Macbeth, and he loves that classical stuff. Win would always be pressing him. It could be a little bit better. That's what you were telling stories. So, I had something to talk about, and I regret not saying hi to him, because he seemed like a great guy.
Yeah.
And of course, just to be on the set with such a genius actor,
Yeah, everything he's been in has been awesome. It was like working with De Niro on The Irishman.
Everything I was told about Robert De Niro, he's very quiet, he's very reserved inside himself, turns it on when action was true. It was a great pleasure, not only a pleasure, milestone in my career to work with such a brilliant genius actor. I haven't seen with him, from Mean Streets to Taxi Driver to Raging Bull, and then finally say, wow, I'm going to be in the scene. Although it's a small scene, it still is the fingers are important, the ears are important in life, our eyes, everything, the body of a work. If you look at it that way, it was not only a great honor to work with him, it's a great accomplishment for myself to get to that level, to be with him. And we had something to talk about. We were friends in the film, and I introduced him to Skinny Razor because we were friends. So I said, well, how can I break the ice? I said, well, I do have friends. My mentor, Richard Bright, Al Neary from The Godfather, knew Robert De Niro and had worked with him. And also Retanya Older, his ex-wife, had done Deer Hunter with him. So I broached the subject with Retanya and Richard, and we just hit it off. How's Retanya doing? And I'm sorry about Richard because he passed away in 2006. So we had really something to talk about, and so that broke the ice, and it was a great pleasure to work. I remember one take. If you watch De Niro, he usually keeps his jackets open. His suit jackets open in Casino and in Goodfellas. And I did one take that I buttoned up the jacket, and we were going to do a different angle. The master shot, I had the jacket button, and then Bobby, call him Bobby, saw that in the next angle I was going to, he said, he came up to me and said, I think you would wear the jacket open. Yeah, but what if Marty doesn't want, would you know? And Marty notices it. Don't worry about it. So I did it, and he did notice it. So there was this big discussion. Bobby went to go talk to him. Hold on a second. He said he went to go talk to Marty or whoever, the continuity person. He said, don't worry about it. It's not going to matter, whatever he said. And he came back and said, leave it open.
Wow.
Okay, thanks. That was a great thing, I guess I think Robert De Niro, besides being a genius, all the political stuff, he, just look at the talent. You don't have to like people in life, but you've got to recognize, what they've accomplished, I think. And what is this all about but giving people the theater? It's a religious, cathartic thing. You walk into the theater or you walk into a film and you feel like that person, you feel like, wow, there's hope. For me, like seeing Steve McQueen in The Sand Pebbles, I don't know if you've ever seen that film. It's a really great film. It's about that we almost had a war with Japan. With the Chinese. With the Chinese, that's what The Sand Pebbles is about. It's about a Navy ship. I think it's a ship that's not really equipped with many, many guns or everything. It's some sort of and their mission is to go to get a mercenary, bring them back from China, and bring them. Anyway, McQueen's in it. And when I walked, to make a long story, a short story even longer, a long story short, I walked out of the film thinking I was Steve McQueen. You know, that's what it gives. You walk out of the film, you think you're Johnny Boy in Mean Streets. I mean, you know, or you're Mel Gibson in Braveheart.
Yeah.
You know, you're Schindler off the Schindler. You know what I mean? Or let's face it. There's a little bit of Tony Soprano in everybody.
Yeah.
And a little bit of Eugene. What'd you say? What'd you say?
Yeah.
To be fair, hold it. Yeah. How many times you want to hit somebody over the head with a cup? Yeah, but you never get a chance to do it. But in acting, you do.
It's funny. I always think like your lines, you know, just in life too. Like what did you say? And he goes, "You ought to know, sweetie." Who was that? That was little Paulie when you were sitting down.
Carl Capitano, who's a very talented writer besides being talented.
Yeah, he was one of my favorites on the show too. I sort of wish he had more of a role in it as well.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
Great. It's a great ensemble.
Oh yeah,
actors that did small bits that came in to do small bits that wanted to be a part of the history of a really groundbreaking TV show that basically broke a lot of rules. You know? Yeah,
it was. I feel like it set up the success of a lot of shows that came after it on HBO.
Yeah, David Chase was definitely a forerunner. You know, of you saw beyond. Around the curve.
Yeah,
he'd been around in Northern Exposure. You know, he had been around. He had this brewing, and he was finally able to get a chance. HBO provided him a platform.
Yeah,
you know. So what's the new platform now? I guess TikTok.
Yeah.
hopefully not TikTok.
Yeah, we need the next
Instagram.
Sopranos.
Everyone's acting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but that's a big difference between that. Now you have Apple TV, you have the different platforms. Everyone's looking for that one particular show that breaks the rules again, or that show, or that piece of material creates their platform, takes it to a higher level.
Yeah.
You know, for us in America, The Office, like that also.
Yeah, okay.
That British show.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. So that was funny.
Yeah, Steve Carroll.
Yeah, is a genius too. But I was always excited when I seen you, when I seen you in American Gangster with the red. So I was like, hey, and then The Irishman, all your scenes in The Sopranos too. You always had great lines, man. Did you do a lot of that yourself, or is it written?
No, on television, usually you really have to stick script writer. In films, for instance, the take that with Robert De Niro in Irishman, that was a take that Marty came up to us and said, "Okay, you guys do whatever you want now. Just throw this one away and whatever you feel." And some of the dialogue I created. I didn't get the writing credit.
Yeah.
But then again, Steve Alien. I'm not really on it.
Those aren't using having shots at the bar.
I don't think realize people the shots of the bar. There was some dialogue, the receding hairline of Skinny Racine over there with the receding hairline. That was me improvising, and I think a lot of improvisation with Joe Pesci. People don't realize even in regular films. I mean, sometimes Robert Altman's MASH, the actors inhabit the character. They know them so well that what they have to give somewhat not enriches the writing. It enriches the writing, enriches it. It adds to it. It doesn't take away from it, but it adds to it. And a lot of films have that element. Of course, some dialogue with certain writers you don't have to change. I mean, or not to change or add to, because it's there already.
Yeah, that's what I did an interview with Dan Grimaldi. He was saying the same sort of thing. You can help good writing, but you can't really help bad writing.
That's true. So what are you adding as an actor? You add to it.
Yeah.
You add yourself. You pour yourself, so to say. You pour yourself the character, and then suddenly there are things, your essences and things you're using from your own life that are used. A life experience can become. For instance, I'm wondering. I didn't get a chance to ask Robert De Niro if the scene in Mean Streets when he's talking about he went down the block, he saw the person. I bet you that was improvised, and what happened, the whole thing. There's a scene at the bar he's talking about. I forgot, but I bet you that was totally. That's great. Both ways are good. Both ways are a very good, effective way.
Yeah.
But when you get it, I guess when you get it into certain writers like Steve Zalian, Gladiator, and of course Brave, all those great writers, Schindler's List. I mean, the writing is all there. Tennessee Williams, nothing has to, and it's not really has to change it, but just the way adding to it. You don't have to. You just got to say it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to because it's all there. Shakespeare is all there. It's in the language.
Yeah, you don't have to change anything.
Imagine improvise. You don't have to improvise Shakespeare. It's all there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't
I
heard
think
it
what I'm
that way.
saying, what I'm saying is there's no one right way, but sometimes there is.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone? They're first starting out. They want to get into acting. What would you tell someone that for they're just starting? They haven't been in anything or done any work yet.
Find a good workshop or a good person that look to people who have been in the business, look at their track record, so to say, like you look at the racing form. And the racing form would say, oh, okay, this teacher, he taught Denzel Washington, he taught Stella Adler, she taught Marlon Brando, she taught Martin Sheen. Oh, I've got a good track record. So I would look for that first. And then I would say, join a good workshop, work with people, and then of course, as David Mamet would say, put on a production and work and focus on the work. Don't focus on the agents and focus on the work. Believe me, if you get yourself out there, someone's going to see it and say, wow, it's pretty good. Let's hire him, or I'd like to work with that. So don't focus so much on the business end of everything or the agencies, the work itself.
What's the worst experience you've had with acting?
The worst experience?
Yeah.
I guess the experience is sometimes you might do a film or you might be on this week's episode and you watched it and you tell everyone, wow, wait till you see what I do this week. It's going to be great. And it's cut out.
Yeah.
So you learn never to tell anyone. Always after it airs, you tell, wow, it was a great scene I was in this week. You got to check it out. Not that I do that, calling up people, but say, did you catch, just in conversation. Yeah. That's the worst feeling in the world. You must sitting with everybody. Where do you see this? I had the scene in Sinner with Jessica Biel. I don't know if you've seen that show, that I was in Sinner, the first season of Sinner. No. It's a great show here in America. Jessica Biel produced it. It was one of the producers. Okay. Bill Pullman is in it, the great actor Bill Pullman. He plays the detective sheriff. It was a great, really successful show, and I played her father-in-law. Yeah. And there was a scene that I had some stuff, and I told everybody, wait till you see this, and never aired. I did a film with Jimmy Fallon too that got cut out. Those are the worst feelings, because you say, wow, why'd they cut that out? And, a lot of the times it's really not you. So it doesn't fit. It's not, the director feels that it's not necessary. It doesn't add to. You have to just, accept it. But you do have the option of not telling anyone.
Yeah.
So they'll never know.
Yeah. But do they ever tell you, hey, sorry, I didn't put you in? Yeah.
No, not really. You never really contact them, unless, for instance, if I was to go back to, let's say, to the director on Sinner and work for him again, maybe perhaps doing a little bit more, I go up to him and say, you son of a, you cut me out of that scene, jokingly, not in a vendetta or vigilante.
What'd you say?
Kind of way. Yeah, what'd you say? I hit him over the head with a Snapple body. You cut me out, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are the worst comments. Those are the worst feeling. I mean, that's the Camino.
Yeah.
I mean, because then you feel, because acting, you're always self-conscious. Was it good enough? Well, why was my performance? It's not about. Sometimes it could be about, but most times, I believe it's not about. It's about moving the action forward. It's just.
What was your best experience in your career?
I think when you're shooting, it's a different feeling in film. When you have a live audience, I like to do theater. A lot of great experiences you have right then and there with the live audience. And film is a little bit different. The cameraman, the director, good job. That was great. Those are great feelings when you get it right. I don't think they're as good as when you have an audience, but I mean, the best experience I had, we had opened the first season 6, and with members only, where I had that great part, and I had a big part in that particular. And afterward, having my mom and dad there at the Ziegfeld and a lady friend, and sitting there with mom and dad, and that was a great feeling to be with them. It really had come a long way from humble beginnings in Brighton Beach. My uncle, Monsignor Funaro, God rest his soul. That was a great feeling. And then, of course, followed post Zickfield. We went to, I think, Roseland Ballroom. We had an after party. We called up on the stage with Jimmy. Jimmy looked me in the eyes and said to me, hey, look, everyone was just applauding us, all the Sopranos. We went up there to take a bow. And Jimmy looked at me and he said, we did it. We did it. And he knew it was like my last hurrah.
Yeah.
And that was I don't think I'll ever forget that when he said that to me, I mean, he was just a great guy, I miss him. I mean, I wasn't there every day, we would do some personal things together, go out, that just owe so much to him.
Yeah, as incredible acting in that episode. That was the biggest surprise for me was like Eugene being a cooperator too, and then he just goes and he does the Teddy hit as well. He's doing everything he can to try and get out of that life.
Yeah, some people interpreted what you're talking about, squealer.
Yeah.
Sections. Hey, you rat! They call me. Some people would say you're a rat. I wasn't a rat. I wasn't a rat. I said I wanted to liberate my family. I wanted to get them to, do anything for them. I just wanted to get. It wasn't a question of that. And if I was a stool pigeon, how come? My answer to them is, how come Tony didn't go to jail after my corroboration with the FBI? He didn't.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did they give you a warning that was going to be your last?
Well, everyone on the show prior to them being whacked, David had, it was a great David Chase. I owe so much to him too, being on Sopranos, him, allowing me the opportunity also to be on the show, stay on the show for so long. He'd always give everyone, a cast member, if they were going to be whacked or they were going to die, if they were regular like myself, a call and tell you, personally tell you, which was really a wonderful thing. And he called me up and he said, hey, Bobby, how you doing? I said, I'm doing great, David. How you doing? He said, well, I got some good news and I got some bad news for you. So, okay, here it comes. Now, prior to this, everyone was coming up to me we started shooting the last season, saying to me, hey, Bobby, you're getting a wife on the show. They're casting your wife. Hey, they're casting your son. The casting people, whatever, in the business with, the words travel. This could be really good. Maybe I'm expanding even more, But it was because of David, because of the show that was written, that Terrence Winter, who, by the way, won an Emmy Award for that particular show. I feel very proud about that too, for that best dramatic episode. He had won that for that season in 2006. David said, I got great news, bad news. What do you want to hear first? I said, well, tell me the good news. The great news, Bobby, is that we got a great episode. You're going to have a wife, kid, and you're going to do really so much more than you've been doing. And I really love your work, and it's fantastic, David. Now, tell me the bad news. Bad news is you're dead. And given the script, I read it, and that was, I said, thanked him. I think I thanked him. David is like a gnome, like the apple scrubs. He would be everywhere and anywhere. You would expect him, he'd be there, on the set, he'd be there, he'd be there, he'd be everywhere. So, of course, he's a creator. So, that's his responsibility to do that. And, so that's the story.
I really felt you in that too. Like, you're just so trapped. I think it's relatable and feel like you got no option. Like Eugene, whichever way he went, he just couldn't get out. It's like,
it was brilliantly written by Terrence Winter. And they added they added the scene. They just wanted all the walls to be closing in on him. They added the scene with finding the drug. That was an add-on, when I find brings in the, no, that was, they added that scene.
You see his heart break there.
So, it was a great time to work. Of course, you always you shoot out of context. I think the first scene I did in Members Only was the scene with Stevie Van Zandt when he tells me the news that Florida thing.
Not happening.
It's a no-go. That's a no-go.
Just so casual too, and
is it because of me? What I done?
Does he think I'm going to talk to people?
You need it for the team, whatever the dialogue was.
Yeah.
You can't leave the team, whatever.
You're part of the team.
So Stevie Van Zandt, a brilliant man. And I know Stevie personally, another great artist, actor. He's a great musician. His wife, Maureen Van Zandt, whom and Vincent Pastore, when we did plays during this, you know, in the off season, we would do plays for their theater company, our theater company, and part of it, the Renegade Theater Company. And Vinny was so generous; he would produce some of the plays he would, you know, produce, and Maureen also would produce the plays to keep us busy, keep our chops going, and to do a different play. So I mean, you know, it's some great things came, you know.
Yeah. You also had the scene with him with when they're talking about the Columbus Day, and you know,
that was one of my favorite. That was one of my favorite days. I felt, you know, I didn't have really a lot of dialogue, but the blowing of the nose and the way I timed that, I thought that was really comedic. You know, the way I kind of, I mean, I think it's really underrated,
I think
that
so.
performance. I mean, I think comic timing and when he says, "Will you stop?"
You can see how annoyed he was.
I really enjoyed, that was a really enjoyable. I have to say, we had such a great time in front of the place, and to do the I call it the nose, blowing the nose bit, you know, and I got a lot of nose to blow. As my friend would always say.
What was your? I was going to say, would those two be your favorite episodes, or do you have another?
Well, of course, members only. Yeah, that was my favorite episode of all time. I guess the Snapple, you know, the construction site episode is really a great episode where I kind of got a chance to show I was, as Joe Ganascoli would say, a snap out character. We call those guys snap outs in the neighborhood. They just snap out. They see black and they go crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was a great.
What did you actually use to hit him in the head?
Oh, that was a Snapple bottle, but it was made of sugarcane. And they had a whole case of 12 of them. But they're very brittle.
Yeah.
We got it on the first take, so we didn't have to do it again. Although Jeff Marchetti, one of the on the show, one of the actors on the show, good friend too, got a little bit in his eye, a little piece in his eye, and we had to kind of, you know, stop for a second to get that. But it wasn't serious, you know. Yeah. So but we got the first take. That was great. To get it on the first take was. And then Carl, of course, who wants to do that? Because, you know, I really slapped him down. I slapped it on him, but I didn't follow through. But it was crushed. I helped, Pete Picosi, great stunt coordinator, you know, on Soprano. He told me, you know, don't follow through, but hit him, and, you know. Yeah. So
wow, he didn't have much luck. He got thrown out the window by Christopher as well, little Paulie.
Yeah, too bad.
But
you know, Carl Capitano, you know, he wrote, he wrote episodes, and he's a writer too, also a good writer.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Carl Capitano's a professional writer, TV television writer. He did the show with the Edie Falco. It didn't make it. I forgot the name. Not
Nurse Jackie.
It was Nurse Betty. Nurse Jackie. It was another show. What was it? She had a. No, it was the commissioner show, the policeman show. She played a police commissioner. I forgot the name. He wrote that. He wrote that. Well, he was openly gay, and she had a significant other, and but it just didn't at the time. It just didn't click, which is kind of crazy because Edie Falco, everything she touched, she's got the Midas touch. Yeah,
she's awesome.
An incredible actress. Yeah, incredible actress.
Yeah, but really underrated too. I think. Yeah.
Well, everyone kind of falls into their niche, so to say.
Yeah.
I think everyone kind of falls into the niche of the medium that they're going to excel in. For her, I mean, I think whatever she does on television, you know, it's great. It's great.
What's your favorite three movies of all time?
Wow, it's a Shawshank Redemption. I'd say Lord Jim, the Richard Basehart, Lord Jim. I'm like, you know, there's so many. And I would say a movie that inspired me to keep going was The 400 Blows by Francois Truffaut.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't mention Martin Scorsese. I didn't mention his favorite three, of course, Raging Bull, Goodfellas, Mean Street. I mean, there are certain director categories. Coppola, of course, Godfather, Pac now, you know, I mean, those two for him. I mean, they're all directors. John Huston, Treasure of the Sierra Madre, Frank Capra, It's a Wonderful Life.
I love that movie.
Each director has his own category. I mean, it's hard to say, Tom, which ones, but the first three, I guess, inspired me. But Shawshank Redemption really hit me in a way that that spirit of that film. Yeah. Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins. Yeah. Great.
Awesome actors.
I was working at the American Place Theater, you know, with I used to work as a receptionist there, which was a great sounding board here in New York. It was really the first subscription theater created by my acting teacher / director, artistic director, Win Hammond, and Sam Shepard started there Dustin Hoffman, Morgan Freeman, so many actors used his particular stage. It was during the Lindsay administration in the 60s. They funded the theater. To make a long story short, some great Sam Shepard, came through those doors. So, I mean, everything is relative. And with Tim Robbins, there was a play that Sam Shepard wrote when the first Afghanistan, the war with Iraq, we had the war with Iraq, called States of Shock.
Yeah, okay.
And everyone, Sam wrote the play. I was a receptionist because I would get free class. I really couldn't afford them at the time. And that's how Win was a very charitable person. He was able to, and I also was on the payroll there too. I was making a little bit of money there as a receptionist to make some extra money. I had a kid, first wife. I remember that play being cast, and I remember Shawshank. He was so great in that. And I remember fielding a call with everyone wanted to be the main character in Shepard's States of Shock. It was his first writing in a long time. It was about the Iraqi war. It was an absurd satire about, with I think a two-character play. John Malkovich and Michael Wincott, another film actor, wound up getting the role. It was a two-hand, but everyone in Hollywood, Tom Hulsey, Tim Robbins, I was getting calls. Can I talk to Winham? And I was I would feel the call. Said, you have to talk to the casting department. And you got to get, and that was a real wake-up call. I said, these guys are in such great films, Amadeus.
Yeah.
Shawshank, and they're trying to get this role. I mean, doing everything they can, and they didn't get it, but they sure as hell tried to do it,
Wow.
So it was kind of cool to see that. Another, you get to see behind the scenes is great too, So half of Hollywood from LA was calling to try to get into this show. Written by Sam, who hadn't did any theater in years, but it's the work. Yeah. It's the work. It's the American Place Theater. If you look up that theater, what it did to change theater in America, it's the work, the actors, giving actors a chance. What James did for me, to get me on the show. It's just that charitable and also a vital element of what theater is. It's like here today's Sunday, Tom. Here is Sunday here in America. It's religious, and everyone wants to get in to see that service or be involved in the service. Cool, really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So when you're not acting, what do you find yourself doing? What do you like to do outside of that?
Cooking.
Yeah.
Although I got to be careful, so now I'm becoming more careful, and I'm picking my battles, so to say. Yesterday I went over to see my granddaughter Juniper and my son-in-law and my daughter upstate. I made a beautiful Sunday gravy. We call it the Sunday gravy. Sometimes we used to have it on Wednesday, so it could be a Wednesday gravy too, or sauce, Sunday sauce. Yeah. I don't want to get into any battles with them, meatballs and brajol, and I brought it over there. So I had it. I love to cook, and if you go to my Instagram, you'll see some of my creations. Some I created, some that I replicated. Yeah. And that's one of my pensions, besides that, hanging out with good friends, family. I like the horses too. I like some of the Australian trainers.
Yeah.
Chris Waller, just won Ascot. He won a course of Ascot. I really respect him. And I respect Australian racing.
Yeah.
I'd love to come out there. Free ticket, of course. Yeah. Somebody out there. Send over Eugene from the Sopranos is going to go to the Crown Victoria
to the Melbourne Cup
race, the big race of it. The Melbourne Cup. I'd love to see the Melbourne Cup, but I really respect the racing there. I do like to place an occasional gamble, you might say, and with the libation and to pick the right horse. And of course, I've been pretty, the great trainers. The less you know, the better you are in handicapping. I think the more you know, the more choices, the more variables. Yeah. So Chris Waller, he's running a race. What's her name? There's a female trainer there. I don't know her name. I forgot her name. She's very good too. Yeah. So and some of the riders that ride there are really great. So I picked the jockey. So that's another, and it's all grass. Really rarely dirt, which I love the grass race, the turf race. I love it. It's the true racing to me. It's the true racing, and it's easier on the horses. And I am amazed by especially in Australia, how long they can keep a racehorse race. Here in America, usually it's 3 to 4 years, and they retire the horse to stud or to breed. But they keep the horses racing, which is great for racing. I think it's great. In Europe, they do the same thing too. It's a gentler, it's a more, I would say, a more prolonged career for the horse. I like to think that my career was somewhat like that I kept racing, to whatever degree that I kept one foot in the door at all, to continue in whatever race. Some races are very allowance races, or they're big stakes races. Like Sopranos was a very big stakes race to me. I could use that as, I mean, and there are other races that are, they're not so expensive, but you get you want to get your juices flowing, so you do that. I'm doing one in Utica, New York called Awaken in August. I'm shooting a film about a filmmaker who's given a bad review and he wants to kill him. So what else is there? But those are projects that are good also to do besides the other projects. Keeps you going, and you always want to get that role that that marries your experience with the experience of the character and the story. I think all the great artists or great actors were able to identify or inhabit the character, like Brando in On the Waterfront, Terry Malloy, wanting to make the right choice, being caught up in the corruption and saying, I don't have to do that. I think that's what Eugene said, I just want to get out. Not in the same way Terry Malloy did, but in a way, somewhat in a different way, he wanted to leave. He made a choice to leave, and so did Terry in On the Waterfront, which is, I think, one of America's greatest films by one of America's greatest living or past Elia Kazan direct ever. And Kazan at the end of his life, he wrote novels. He wrote the arrangement. He liked the idea of writing novels because he had all the control. He got tired of doing films because they're a collaboration. I just watched How It's Made or a series on Netflix. They have a series on they talk about different films behind the scenes. And I didn't know that certain films were like, they were canned by one studio, like they stopped production and another studio picked it up. Home Alone with Macaulay Culkin.
Really?
That was a Warner Brothers production, and they felt that the budget was going over budget. It got to $15.7 million. And they wanted to close production on it, and they did. But the director and the writer, they made a deal with Fox. And Fox picked it up. To make a long story short, the film grossed $251 million. Warner Brothers was a little upset that they did.
So they just lost 15 mil. Wow.
15 mil. No, they lost. Yeah, they lost. Wow, they lost 200.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
$200 if you look at it in the box office gross. They were number one, I think, for 6 weeks at the box office. Now it's the live streaming services, subscription. What became the American Place Theater subscription, it's funny because it's funny how subscription theater was created by Wynn because of he wanted to create a true voice of theater, of language, and he did it not being dependent on the reviews of the New York Times that did review his plays, but the subscription base, basically people subscribed, and that's what HBO did, and now that's what everyone, all the platforms, Apple TV, Paramount Plus, here, we're producing more, and it's a great opportunity for actors for more work.
Yeah, okay.
And on the back end, a lot of times when you do something, you get money as they play your image and you get residual money. It's not as good, but still it's keeping you going. And I'd rather just be working more than just sitting around waiting for the phone to ring or getting a check in the mail, you get from Sopranos and a lot of various other particular shows, that I've been on.
Yeah, I always wondered about that. Do you like, because I hear you get paid every time it shows on TV. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's the union. I think it's fair to say, they're using our image to
definitely.
A small story. They used my image for the Daily Show. I don't know if you ever see the Daily Show here in America. It's a very popular. It was a very popular satiric show, like a Saturday Night Live.
I've seen Saturday Night Live. Who's on the Daily Show?
The Daily Show. It was with Jon Stewart.
Yes, Jon Stewart. Yeah.
And Trevor Noah took it on. Yeah. Trevor Noah, the English actor, Trevor Noah, English person. Yeah. So Trevor took it, and I get a call from my friend Billy Demerit, saying, "Hey, did you know you were on the Daily Show?" No, what was that? Yeah, they played that scene that you tell the juror that you got to do the right thing, which was another great day.
Yeah.
With, Henry Brock, do the we know you do the right thing. That thing that with Tony and Uncle
the Junior
Junior,
Soprano trial.
You do the right thing with the kid. They played that scene because they used it as a political. And I said, "Wow, I wonder if I get paid." And I called the union, and they said, "Yeah, you get paid, and we'll make sure you get the money. So you're going to get paid a day's work, which is almost about $1,000. That's a good,
awesome.
good ching."
Yeah.
So
Play
that's
it
what
again.
the union protects us, and it's a great SAG union, Screen Actors great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that scene too, and he
I
just
feel
goes
very
in.
blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah, very blessed, Thomas, and very fortunate to have come this far, be a part of the union. Just very fortunate to be a friend of James Gandolfini. I don't know what to say. I'm just very blessed. Thank you, God.
Yeah.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James. Thank you, God.
Yeah.
If you wait a second, I'll show you a particular painting made by this painter who does a lot of, and there's a little story behind that. If I can leave the screen, is it okay to leave the
Yeah,
screen
sure.
for a second or no?
Yeah,
I have a
it's fine.
painting here by John Podersky. I'm not marketing his paintings.
No, that's fine.
Artist Sopranos. That's it.
Oh, that
See
is
that?
cool.
That
Yeah.
was the golf scene.
Yeah.
Right prior to the golf scene, John, because I told John the story,
Wow.
and they took this shot and they printed it in a particular magazine. I don't know which magazine it was. So I had the picture, and John, he did this oil painting, which is really. So anyway, I'll do this.
That's got to be a treasure.
Jimmy is talking, and Jimmy says to me, and Jimmy here is just like, oh man, when is this going to be over? I just want to go home. I just want to hang out, sometimes, being a star on a show, I guess it's tiring, and I think Jimmy over here is just like, when is this shit going to end? When is the day going to end? When is this sometimes it tires you out. So much responsibility,
Yeah.
I never felt that responsibility, but I'm sure you carry the world on your shoulders. And you may want to say, I'd like to move on, but so many people depend on me. And of course, James would not allow that until finally, it ended for everyone. It's a good over 10 years the show's on, and even though it's 6 seasons, that's like 10 years. So anyway, here, Jimmy asked me, we were in a golf cart. I was driving, of course. He said, I'll give you $3,000 if you drive the golf cart into that pond. I said, you crazy? I'm serious, Bob. 3,000 cash.
Wow.
And that's the way he was.
Yeah.
He wanted to have a joke. Just tell him, you lost control. I said, James, I'd love to do it, but if something happens to you and they get wind that I did it purposely, I am going to be in hot water. I'm really going to die tomorrow.
Yeah.
He didn't push me. He didn't push me to do it, but that's the story behind this painting. Anyway, that's a small story behind the painting.
That's cool. That's an awesome painting.
Artist Sopranos, John Production. He's online. He's on Instagram. Check out his work.
I'll check him out for sure. That's really cool.
Yeah, so that's the story. So,
who's an actor that you haven't worked with that you would love to work?
Well, any of those actors. Liam Neeson, love him.
Yeah,
Liam Neeson, Mel Gibson, Harvey Keitel. I love to work with Harvey Keitel.
Yeah, he was on Irishman too. Hey, as Angela.
James Caan.
Yeah.
But I don't know if James Caan's still working. Someone older. Kathy Bates, some great actors. Sly Stallone.
Yeah.
I love to work with him. He's doing a new show called Tulsa King. It's about like a witness protection kind of a thing. Goes away to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he starts his own little syndicate there. 20 years in jail or whatever is on the lam. And it's a good premise, and we'll see how we do. Some friends of mine are in it, and so I'd love to work with him. Rocky was talk about inspiration, talk about walking out of theater. Who doesn't walk out of the theater? Rocky feeling like, man, I can do the impossible. I can
take on the world.
I can win the race. Yeah. So
do you do any writing or anything?
I do. My next, I think I'd love to move into directing. Many actors, I feel like my uncle really was a very good director. I feel like, and I just directed a wonderful Italian play called Metropolitan Miracles for a radio podcast. I don't know if it's going to hit the airwaves.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor about the pandemic. Only sewage works as the pandemic virus, and it takes place in Italy.
Yeah.
And it's a satire, very much like a Shepherd play.
Yeah.
Gluten-free, people identities change. I really can't explain it. But anyway, I directed it. I had a good time, and I hope to maybe direct it off Broadway or off Broadway or on Broadway, and to open up to my career to directing. I really want to do that, and if God allows that, I'll definitely do it. I have a feeling that a good faith that it can happen, and that's what I like. And I do some writing. I have changed particular scripts. I've been paid to not rewrite, but to doctor. So I do. I'm not a full-fledged writer. I may be able to come up with a concept, an idea, and then have the help of a writer, you know what I mean, and do cuts, like rewrite a little bit to add to, like we said, in acting. So I do that. I mean, I have attempted to write some screenplays, you know, but none have been produced as of yet, you know. But I'm more, you have to know what you're good at. And I think that's important. With TikTok, everyone thinks they're an actor, you know. I mean, there's that, you know, actor or writer. I mean, there's that old saying, I have it right here. I have to put my glasses. I wish the stage were as narrow as a wire of a tightrope dancer so that no incompetent would dare step upon it.
Wow.
You know, so I mean, I hate to be harsh, but it's true. So you got to know what you're good at and what you know, accept the thing. Not everyone could listen. Not everyone could be a high jump Olympic. You may want to be, but find your strengths and your strengths. I think the greatest stories, like Capra wrote about everyday people doing everyday things, but having such great inner strength and conviction to do the right thing, make the right choice. Those stories about everyday people, not about the kings and the queens. Of course, Shakespeare wrote about the king and their foils, the king like Macbeth, named him, and Henry V, and all those, about everyday people doing everyday things that, you know, come across a challenge that they have to overcome. And I think in life, there are many stories like that, and many people who recognize what they can do, and as my dad said, I think the best way to sum this up, what you do with what you got that counts. I'm sitting in his seat, so it's coming from the master's seat. It's what you do with what you got that not what you imagine have inside. Good at, you know, Thomas.
Yeah, that's great advice, man. That's awesome. Happy to hear that. What do you got planned for the rest of the year?
Well, you know, I mean, we'll see what happens. You know, I have the project Awaken in Utica, New York coming up. I also have a horror film where I play a detective called The End with Robert Davi is going to be in it. Some really great people, Scott Baio, and some Friday the 13th. I think Freddie's making an appearance. Some of the big horror stars are doing some appearances. It's called The End. It'll be shot in Tampa, and they pushed it back to first 2 weeks of September. Maybe some other things that I won't talk about now. So, you know, but you have a tendency as an actor to wait till the fish is in the boat, so to say. Just like when I told you about I'm on TV this week, you know, wait till the fish is in the boat. You got it. And here it is. Because they can get away. They can get away. The hook slips, you know, the hook slips and they're gone. So it is a truth. And hopefully we'll have some more good news soon.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I'm so glad I got to talk with you.
It was great to talk to you, Tom.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah. I used to write like novels when I was a teenager, just from watching you guys on The Sopranos. And
that's cool.
Yeah, just like.
Have you published any of the novels?
No, I just used to write them and then I'd put them away.
Okay, all right.
I had a little
maybe you have some good stories that I'd like to read. Some, you know, as a director, you know, and send them out, man. You have my email now, so send them out. You know?
Well, it's like a novel format, but
that's okay. It's all right. It's a novel form.
Yeah, I have to repolish.
I have a tendency to want to read things. I mean, some people they just send a treatment because I can't. This is the extent of what they want to read. It has to be on this. This size. It has to be limited to that. I have a tendency to want to read is the Bible. It's a big, voluminous book. There's a lot of wisdom. I'm just saying it's voluminous, and I don't mind reading a gospel.
I got my Bible in the other room. Yeah.
Well, right on, man. A script is like a Bible. You know, a gospel's like a story. You know, a parable. I mean, how many parables? You know, what is a profit of man to gain the world and lose his soul? There's a film that I have in the credenza that's what that's about. You know, written by a friend of mine that I helped. He talked about writing. I helped rewrite it, write and take out and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't mind reading.
That's awesome.
It's a lost art reading, you know?
Yeah.
I have so many books I haven't read. But the only way I can explain that is just take one and finish it and then start on the next. You know?
Yeah. I had so many. But one day when I re-polish one up, I'll send you something.
Okay, fine. You got my email.
Yeah. Like you're saying, there's something about holding a book and reading it that it's a lost art. I love reading books. I still buy books today. even though there's audio ones out
Right
now.
on. Yeah, I mean, they're great books, great films. I mean, they have a channel
Yeah.
here called the Criterion Channel. I don't know if you have it there, Australia, but
No, I haven't heard it.
so anyway, they play all the classic films from a lot of great directors. They have, and then they, you know, they take them, they're leased to them, and then they take them off, or they keep them on there. They have Billy Wilder, which I just saw, Double Indemnity. I also, he has some great films, you know.
Yeah.
Lost Weekend. I just saw Lost Weekend by Billy Wilder. Some great, which won an Academy Award. It was about alcoholism in the 40s, 1945. You know, you look at these things, Thomas, you say alcoholism was a problem when it first, of course, prohibition and everything. Now the thing is Oxycontin here, substance abuse, heroin has become a very big issue here. And how many families have been affected? My family, I lost my nephew.
Sorry to hear that.
You know, got rid of. Yeah, thank you, Joe Massey. I honor him now. You know, a young man, you know, in his 20s, and alcoholism. Then the story hasn't changed. Mankind has addictions and failing, you know, but we got to tell these stories. You know, I hope to one day maybe tell his story, or tell some sort of similar story, or maybe a story about the people left behind and how they're affected by stuff like that. He didn't do it deliberately. I don't think any addict, when it comes to those kind of drugs, do it deliberately. I think it's a very strong addiction that, you know, and he was doing so well. He was going to Bible college in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. But he was just, when you see that, I was told, like, you know, when I see things like, you know, someone shows you a spoon that can trigger, or any kind of, like, his story was a roommate was thrown out of where he was staying. The roommate asked him to go grab his stuff, substance, whatever it was. Once you have it in front of you, you know, and he, we call that backslid,
relapsed,
relapse, right? Relapsed. So I mean, you know, but what I'm trying to say is, it's a mankind throughout time. We have these in different ways. We're presented with the same, in a way, the same problems. You know, that's why I really like the play Metropolitan Miracles by Gabriele De Luca that I just directed, because to me it just hit me in a way that, you know, the pandemic hit us. Everybody was living inside. People's careers blossom. I'm a 3-star Michelin chef in the play. There's no more restaurant for me because of the sewage. Everyone's living inside. My wife becomes a master gluten-free chef, and I'm working for her. How many people are working for someone else during the pandemic? That's one of the topics. Many more. And that's why I gravitated towards that, because the story stays the same. Even though it changes in different places, mankind's trials and tribulations and triumphs also are the same throughout time.
Yeah,
okay, man.
Agree with you 100%. Well,
Right on.
Thanks for talking to me, man, again. And
Thomas Berryman, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. I'm glad we can do this.
Yeah.
Someone sees the show and gets me over to the Melbourne Cup, man. Well, definitely. That's one great interviewer, and it's been a pleasure to talk.